I loved her for 4 years. Every time her friends asked, she'd just call me the guy who fixes stuff. Never once did she say I was her boyfriend, even though we shared a bed, a home, and years of New Year's Eve kisses. I thought patience was love until she slept with her boss and still asked me to help her move in with him. I said yes. I carried every box and left one final surprise she never saw coming. My name is Alex Mason. I'm 34 years old, a mechanical engineer, working for a mid-sized automation company in Brooklyn. My life has always been pretty straightforward, predictable, routine, safe. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, just stable. And maybe that's exactly why I fell for someone like Emily Caldwell. Emily was 2 years older than me. She worked as a marketing manager at a major media firm in Manhattan. Tall, lean, with perfectly straight chestnut hair and an eye for effortless luxury. She walked into any room like she owned the air, like gravity, bent just a little differently around her. She was magnetic. We met at a networking event at NYU. I was awkward, stumbling over my words. She, on the other hand, spoke like every syllable had been edited by a publicist. Still, for some reason, she texted me first. Then came coffee dates, gallery strolls, wine nights. And before I knew it, her things were filling up my 18th floor apartment near Prospect Park. For a while, I told myself I was lucky. She was out of my league in every way. But love doesn't ask about leagues, right? I just kept showing up, picking up takeout, fixing her broken shoe rack, paying for the utilities she never offered to split. I thought I was building something real. Then came a cold November evening in Soho. I brought Emily to meet my close friends at a cocktail bar, vintage decor, jazz playing, low candles on every table. One of the girls leaned in and asked, "So who's this?" Emily gave that signature smile of hers, the kind that seemed rehearsed but still charming, and replied, "Oh, he's the guy who fixes my stuff. Super handy." There was a beat. I turned to her, stunned, but she kept smiling like it was nothing. One of her friends giggled and the moment passed, at least for them. Me, I smiled too. The kind of smile you use to cover a gut punch in a room full of people who don't know you're bleeding. In the taxi ride home, I stared out the window. She leaned against me, her hand sliding into my coat sleeve like it always did. "We've been together for so long," she whispered. "Do we really need a label?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how to, because in that moment I wasn't sure what we were anymore. That night marked a shift, a quiet one like the first crack in glass. I started paying attention. I realized she never once called me her boyfriend in front of others, never posted a photo of us, never held my hand when people she knew were around. She said it was about privacy, about professionalism, about things I wouldn't understand. One Saturday afternoon, I was crouched under the kitchen sink fixing a leak when she brought a coworker home. I was wearing a tank top soaked in sweat, holding a wrench. She pointed toward me and laughed. "See, I don't need to call a plumber. I've got Alex, my 24/7 home maintenance guy." I froze, didn't even look up. Her friend chuckled politely. I finished the repair, wiped my hands, and retreated into my office. The faucet no longer dripped, but something inside me did. That night, Emily came out of the shower in one of my old button-ups, wet hair, glowing skin, jasmine scented. She slid into bed, pulled my arms around her, and kissed me like nothing had happened. I still wanted her. My body didn't betray me, but my mind was screaming. She came. She moaned. She slept. And I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering, am I her partner or just someone she keeps around for convenience? The question didn't leave me. It clung to my mornings, my coffee rituals, my quiet evenings alone while she stayed late at work. It followed me like a shadow that no longer matched my shape. So I started writing things down. Nothing dramatic, just notes on my phone. Emily called me a handyman in front of her friend. She didn't want to introduce me at the office party. She hides her phone when she texts, not to accuse, just to remember. The apartment we shared was leased under my name. She had moved in with a couple of suitcases and within months took over half the closet and every drawer in the bathroom. She never offered to help with rent or utilities, and I never asked. I told myself love meant giving, but somewhere deep down I started to wonder if she ever truly saw this place as our home. Sometimes I'd stay up at night just watching her sleep, peaceful, soft breaths, perfectly untouched by guilt. And I'd think to myself, am I living with the woman I love or sheltering someone who only loves the comfort I provide? And I still said nothing. But for the first time in 4 years, I felt the love starting to slip. And that was the beginning of the end. I used to believe that if I just stayed quiet long enough, everything would fall into place. Emily had her own orbit, and I was the steady ground. I thought if I just loved her enough, if I showed up every day, stayed useful, dependable, patient, she'd eventually turn around and look at me the way I looked at her, with certainty, with pride. But love, I've learned, doesn't grow in silence. It withers. The company holiday gala was held at the Peninsula Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Gold chandeliers, string quartets, and every guest dressed like they had somewhere more important to be. Emily wore a backless black dress and crimson lipstick. She looked like a Vogue cover brought to life. She turned heads all night. And me, I was just there. The guy holding her coat, the accessory without a label. When one of her co-workers came over to greet her, she flashed a perfect smile and gestured casually toward me. "This is Alex, my in-house Mr. Fix-It. He can unclog a drain in record time." They laughed. I didn't. I stood there holding a champagne flute like it was a shield, grinning like an idiot, while my inside screamed. I wasn't just being dismissed. I was being erased. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't even go upstairs. I sat in the car parked behind our building, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Her voice echoed in my head over and over, "Mr. Fix-It." Like that's all I'd ever been to her. Not a partner, not a boyfriend, just a service provider she happened to sleep with. In the days that followed, I began noticing everything. She changed the passcode on her phone. She started taking her laptop into the bathroom. She stopped leaving my shoes by the door. And every time someone named David called, her tone shifted softer, silkier, like she was auditioning for someone new. One night she came home late, her jacket smelling faintly of red wine and a cologne I didn't own. I asked casually, "Late night at the office?" She smiled, tossed her purse on the counter. "Team dinner. David and Jenna were there." "You don't have to worry." But I did. Not because I was jealous. I'm not wired that way. I'm an engineer. Proof is everything. And for the first time in my life, I felt the need for truth. Not for control, not for revenge. Just clarity, closure. I visited an electronics shop off Flatbush and bought a tiny USB camera disguised as a phone charger, motion-activated, discreet. I installed it behind the bookshelf in our living room, aimed carefully at the main seating area. I didn't want to violate privacy, I just needed answers. I had been living under suspicion for months and I couldn't breathe under it anymore. That weekend I told Emily I had a short business trip to Connecticut. She barely looked up from her phone when I said it. "Cool. Text me when you get back," she said. I left Friday morning. By that night I was in a budget hotel room staring at my phone screen watching the live feed. David walked into our apartment like he owned it. He poured wine. She giggled. Then she sat on his lap on our couch and whispered in his ear, "You like it." My roommate already fixed everything for me. I hit pause. Not because I couldn't watch, but because I didn't need to watch anymore. There it was, clear as day, her betrayal wrapped in silk and sarcasm. The next night I got a text from Emily. "Hey babe, are you back Tuesday morning? I've got big news. I'm transferring to Seattle. David says it's a huge opportunity, but I'm freaking out about the move. Can you help me pack just like old times?" Just like old times. I stared at the screen. She had cheated on me, lied to me. And now she wanted me to carry her boxes. I typed back, "Sure, I'll help." And I smiled. Not because I was planning to forgive her, but because I was planning something she'd never see coming. Something quiet, something final. I drove back from Connecticut in total silence. No music, no news, just the sound of the engine and my thoughts moving in sync like a machine I knew by heart. I wasn't heartbroken, I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was building a plan. Emily thought I'd help her move because I was predictable, because I was the nice guy, because that's what I'd always done. Lifted her boxes, fixed her leaks, said yes when I should have walked away. She had no idea she'd finally given me the perfect stage to exit, on my terms. She handed me the list of items she wanted to bring to Seattle, even sent the address of her new condo, some glossy apartment near Lake Union. I studied it like I would any blueprint, and I began packing, but not just the way she expected. That Saturday morning I woke up before she did and made coffee like nothing had changed. She strolled out of the bedroom in one of my old dress shirts, hair tousled, smelling like she hadn't washed out the night before. Today's the big day, she said between sips. I booked the truck. It comes Monday morning. We've got 2 days to pack everything. I nodded. She kissed my cheek and stepped out onto the balcony to take another call. Probably David. She didn't even hide it anymore. I packed, I taped, I labeled, I folded. She scrolled Instagram, chimed in now and then with comments like, "Split the shoebox is too heavy. Don't mix hair tools with perfumes. Use the pink suitcase for my coats." I followed directions like a perfect little soldier, all while building something she couldn't see coming. That night when she went out for a farewell dinner with friends, I opened one of the bigger boxes labeled winter clothes. I pulled out a few sweaters, made space at the bottom, and slid in a gray envelope. Inside was a printed copy of an email she had sent David. "I'm dumping Alex soon. He's sweet but useless." A screenshot of a text conversation where she called me loyal, like a puppy, kinda pathetic but convenient. A USB flash drive with a carefully clipped segment of the security footage, just her voice saying, "Let him carry the boxes. He's obedient." And lastly, a note in my handwriting that read, "Good luck in Seattle. I won't be delivering the boxes. You'll have to carry this one yourself." I sealed the box, taped it up, labeled it "Cold Weather, Priority," then placed it dead center in the living room where it would be the first one loaded on the truck. The night before her flight, we ate a quiet dinner together. She didn't say much. Maybe she thought I was processing our breakup. Maybe she assumed I'd say something. I didn't. I just watched her. Every movement, every fake laugh, every flick of her fork. When she washed the dishes, I sat behind her on the couch, watching the curve of her spine and wondering, how did I ever love her so completely? The next morning, the moving truck arrived. I lifted every box onto it myself. She stood on the balcony, phone pressed to her ear, giggling. "David, babe, he's doing everything. I didn't even have to touch a box." And she was right. I did everything. Until I didn't. As we stood at the curb, her rolling suitcase next to her, she turned to me. "You're the best," she said, kissing me on the cheek like I was a hotel bellhop. "Fly out after me, okay? Text me when you're close." I smiled. "Sure thing." She walked into the terminal, heels clacking against the pavement, never once looking back. And that was the last time I ever saw her in person. I went back upstairs alone, sat on the bare floor of our now empty apartment. The sunlight poured in through the windows, quiet and clean. I didn't drive the truck. I didn't ship the boxes. I didn't return her calls. I simply disappeared. And I knew without a doubt that in a few days, when she opened that box in her shiny new life, she'd feel it too. The quiet, the weight, the truth. It wouldn't scream. It wouldn't break things. It would just sit there and unravel her one printed email at a time. Tuesday came and went like a jazz song with too many rests. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't drive to Seattle. I didn't call the moving company to confirm delivery. I didn't even bother to check if she tried to reach out, because I'd already blocked her number before I sealed the final box. That morning, I brewed my usual cup of coffee and sat by the living room window, watching sunlight drip down the bricks of the building across the street. The apartment was quiet, eerily so. No clacking heels, no perfume trails, no snide remarks over lukewarm lattes. Freedom, I realized, doesn't arrive with fanfare. It comes with silence. At 3:17 a.m., New York time, my phone buzzed. It was an email from a personal Gmail address I didn't recognize, but I didn't need to. I opened it slowly, sipping from my mug. Subject: "What the hell did you do, Alex Body? You think this is funny? I opened that box in front of David. You ruined my life. Everyone at work knows. They're talking. David won't return my calls. I thought I could trust you. God, I was so stupid. You should be ashamed of what you did." I read it twice, then hit archive. I wasn't ashamed, because what Emily didn't know was that I hadn't sent everything. I still had the original files, the uncut footage, the raw emails, the receipts. She only got a taste. And the truth that shook her wasn't that I exposed her. It was who exposed her. The man she belittled, dismissed, used. The one she called obedient. She once told David, laughing, "Alex isn't scary. He's sweet. He doesn't fight." She was right. I didn't fight. I ended it. And now she was in Seattle alone, ghosted, without a job title to polish her name. And I was in Brooklyn, unbothered, whole. A few days later, Jenna, the coworker who once introduced herself at the gala, texted me. She wanted to grab coffee, said she had a few things to ask. I agreed. We met at a cafe in Brooklyn Heights. She was different this time. No designer coat, no performative smile. Just a cardigan, a messy bun, and a latte between both hands. She looked at me across the table for a long second, then said, "So, I heard about what happened in Seattle." I nodded. She let out a small laugh, not mocking, more like she finally understood. I never liked her, to be honest, but I didn't think you had it in you. I didn't either, I said. Jenna sipped her drink. David's been suspended. They're doing a full audit on the department. And Emily, I think she's bouncing between Airbnbs. No one's hiring her. It should have made me gloat, but it didn't. I just felt lighter. She reached out, touched my hand briefly. You didn't deserve the way she treated you, Alex. It wasn't pity. It wasn't flirting. It was respect. Something I hadn't felt in years. I thanked her, and I meant it. For the first time in a long while, someone saw me as more than just background noise, more than a tool, more than just the boyfriend. After that, I started walking early in the mornings, no earbuds, just me, the cold air, and the hum of a city that didn't know what I had survived. I signed up for classes, bought new books, started rebuilding my life, not out of spite, but from the debris Emily left behind. Slowly, intentionally. Weeks passed. I sold off what little was left of her things on Facebook Marketplace. Someone messaged me once whose stuff was, "This looks expensive." I replied, "Just someone who used to live here." And that was enough. Emily was gone, and I was still here, not broken, not bitter, just rebuilding. But I knew Emily. I knew she wouldn't stay buried. She'd claw her way back into relevance. She always did. And that's why I wasn't done. Because she still had one thing left she thought she owned. Control. And I was going to take that too. I used to think revenge was something reckless, raw, messy, loud. The kind of thing people do when they're desperate or humiliated. But I've come to realize the most devastating revenge doesn't raise its voice. It whispers. Emily thought the box I left her was the end. But really, it was only the opening act. I didn't blast her texts online. I didn't send the video to her family or her HR department. I didn't have to. She had already planted enough damage on her own. All I did was position the pieces quietly, deliberately, so they'd collapse in just the right order. If I had wanted to hurt her and move on, the box would have been enough. But Emily didn't just cheat on me. She degraded me. She paraded me like a pet, told people I was useful, loyal, obedient. Her punishment wasn't pain, it was exposure, and I wasn't done yet. A week after Jenna told me about the fallout in Seattle, David's suspension, Emily's jobless drift between Airbnbs, I reached out to an old classmate from MIT. Zach now worked as a senior consultant for a startup focused on internal fraud detection. I handed him a few breadcrumbs, anonymized budget inconsistencies, flagged at invoices, and vague expense reports Emily had left behind on her laptop. She'd assumed the files were deleted when she abandoned it in our Brooklyn apartment. They weren't. Within 10 days, a formal audit was launched at her former firm. David was let go. Emily was called in for questioning, and me, I simply disappeared into the background where she always assumed I belonged. I quit my job at the manufacturing firm a few months earlier and used what savings I had to go full-time into something new. I started taking coding boot camps, auditing product management classes, and working on an idea that had been simmering in my head for years, a diagnostic tool for engineering systems that could identify inefficiencies in real time. I teamed up with Taylor, a friend from undergrad who'd been working in blockchain infrastructure. He didn't ask me why I wanted to build this. He just saw my wireframes and said, "Yeah, we can make this work." And we did. 6 months later, our startup got an invitation to present at TechCrunch Disrupt 2025 in San Francisco. It was everything I had quietly worked for. Validation, spotlight, momentum. But then I got the speaker list. Keynote, David R. Jennings, former creative director, Manhattan Media Group, current strategy lead, Hightower, Seattle. I laughed. He was still crawling around in the industry somehow. Emily was probably clinging to his coattails or trying to charm her way into new rooms. But I wasn't there for them. I was there for something bigger, something poetic. I revised my presentation. The first slide had no text, just a series of visuals. A man lifting boxes, alone security footage, playing in near silence, and a distorted female voice saying, "Let him carry the boxes. He's obedient." I didn't include names. No faces, just the echo. That voice was hers. The room wouldn't know who she was, but she would. The rest of the deck pivoted into our software, how it works, what it solves, how it saves companies millions in system losses. It was clean, impressive, but layered beneath all of it was a story no one else could see. On the morning of the event, I looked at myself in the mirror, gray suit, neat hair, no hesitation in the eyes. I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't feel forgettable. I didn't even feel angry. I felt ready. I walked onto the stage under a halo of white lights, facing a room full of people who had no idea what I'd been through. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care if they did. I opened with one sentence. I used to be called the guy who just carried boxes. But those boxes taught me something. If you carry enough of them long enough, eventually you figure out how to carry an empire. And in the third row, I saw her, Emily, shorter hair, no makeup, no polished power stance. She looked older, exhausted, her lips parted, trembling. She recognized the voice in my slides. She recognized the story, our story, but no one else did. And that was the power of it. I didn't call her out. I didn't need to. I ended my talk. The room gave me a standing ovation. Investors shook my hand. Executives asked for meetings. One fund offered to lead our seed round within the hour. And me, I looked straight at Emily, not with hate, not with pity, just a quiet, patient smile. No more bitterness, no more begging. Only the peace that comes when the ghost of someone who belittled you finally sees you as what you are, unreachable. After the TechCrunch presentation, everything shifted. We weren't just another startup with an idea anymore. We were the story. Two venture capital firms reached out before I even left the conference hall. One of them wired us a commitment the very next morning. I didn't celebrate with champagne or rooftop parties. I just went home, brewed a black coffee, and stared out the window of my Brooklyn apartment, the same one Emily once treated like her personal hotel suite. I hadn't seen her in years, until that day, and I knew she wouldn't go quietly. That night around midnight, my inbox lit up. From Emily Caldwell. "Subject, you won? They know everything. David's gone. They've cut all ties with me. My name's on a blacklist. I can't get hired anywhere. The box, the footage, the email, you broke me. Alex, if you still have any part of the old you left in there, let me speak to you. Just once. Please." I didn't reply. I slept. I woke up the next morning calm, steady. I had a meeting with a partner firm, a demo to finalize, and a new office lease to review. I was busy living a life that no longer made room for her voice, but part of me knew what she was really asking for. Not forgiveness, not closure, control, one more conversation, one more window, one more chance to spin the narrative. And I was done handing her the microphone. Still, 3 weeks later, I agreed to meet her. At a cafe in Manhattan, one she used to love because the baristas always frothed her latte just right. She was already there when I arrived. Different. Hair chopped, short, color faded, designer bag swapped for a canvas tote. No foundation, no lashes. Just a tired face trying to hold composure. She stood up fast when she saw me, but I didn't hug her. I just sat down, folded my hands on the table. "Alex," she said, her voice cracking, I wanted to say it to your face. You didn't deserve what I did. You were good to me. You were too good to me." I let her speak. "I didn't think you'd ever leave," she continued. "I thought I could push and you'd still be there fixing sinks and carrying boxes. But when I opened that one last box and read that note, I knew it was over." She took a deep breath, eyes glassy but dry. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I lost more than a job. I lost the only person who ever really saw me." I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel bitterness or anger. I just felt distance. I stood up, dropped a few bills on the table, and said calmly, "I didn't just stop carrying your boxes, Emily. I stopped carrying you. That's the difference." I turned and walked out. Didn't look back. After that day, she never contacted me again. Months passed. My company scaled. We signed 3 exclusive manufacturing clients in Pennsylvania. Taylor and I were featured in Wired's 20 Under 40. Our app was acquired in a quiet but lucrative deal. I used the earnings to buy back my Brooklyn apartment, this time fully in cash. I repainted the walls, tossed out everything that didn't serve me, the furniture, the memories, the version of me that lived for someone else's approval. At our product launch event, I stood on stage under warm lights. Behind me, a screen displayed one line in white text over black. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away carrying nothing. The room went still, and then the applause erupted. They didn't know the full story, but I did. And somewhere I knew she did too. Because the final box wasn't cardboard. It was me. I was the box. Heavy full of everything she never took the time to open. And now she'll never get the chance again. Moral of the story, never underestimate someone just because they stay quiet. When they speak, it won't be with words, it'll be with results.